Welcome time travelers and welcome new time travelers. As always, if you're new to this channel and enjoy learning about history, not only from the US but around the world, then don't forget to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today, we're going back to 1542 when King Henry the 8th of England had Catherine Howard, his fifth wife, beheaded on charges of adultery. Man, I would not want to live back during that time because of that. In 1649, English author John Milton published his first political tract, The Tenure of King and Ministries, in response to the execution of King Charles I. Following the Glorious Revolution, William and Mary were proclaimed King and Queen of England on this day in 1689, after which they ruled jointly as King William III and Queen Mary II until her death in 1694. In 1692, Scottish soldiers under Archibald Campbell, 10th Earl of Arundel, slaughtered members of the MacDonald clan of Glencoe after their chief, Alexander MacDonald, missed the deadline for swearing allegiance to King William III. In 1883, brought us German composer Richard Wagner, whose operas and music had a revolutionary influence on the course of Western music, passed away in Venice at the age of 69. In 1935, Bruno Hamptmann was convicted of kidnapping and murdering the 20-month-old son of Charles Anne Moreau and Anne Marrow Lindbergh. He received the death penalty. On this day in 1946, Harold L. Ickes resigned as Secretary of Interior after dispute with President Harry S. Truman over appointment of Edwin W. Pauley as underslay of the Navy. I'm not sure, Undersaki of the Navy. I'm not sure what that is. No one in my family that I know of has been in the Navy, so I don't know what that is. Ickes asserted he refused to remain in administration where he is expected to commit perjury for sake of the party. Or he was Undersaki. I'm not sure what that is. The following year, in 1947, brought us John W. Snyder, Secretary of Treasury, announced controversy over Henry J. Mongonsorth's use of Treasury Department material in his 900-volume diary, had even settled and later would return any material needed to complete the Treasury's files. In 1950, British musician Peter Gabriel, who was the lead singer of the progressive rock band Genesis before launching a successful solo career, was born. In 1956, Nathaniel William Winkelman Sr., American neurologist, passed away in Philadelphia, PA, at the age of 64. 1956 also brought us a fire in an office building in Guernsey, Turkey, killing 20 people. 4 years later, in 1960, France detonated its first atomic bomb, and the Sahara Desert. 10 years later, in 1970, 400 U.S. volunteers sailed for Cuba to help harvest sugarcane. 1982 is when a civil court judge in El Salvador ordered 5 former National Guardsmen to be held for further investigation in the murders of 3 Roman Catholic nuns and a lawyer woman, co-worker in December of 1980. The news was gratifying to U.S. officials because it seemed at times that no serious effort was being made to apprehend those responsible. Physical evidence in the case included a fingerprint on the woman's burned-out van and shell casings. On February 11th, President Joseph Napoleon Duarte flatly declared, "These men are guilty." 2 years later, in 1984, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, gave its preliminary approval for Texaco Inc., the nation's third-largest oil concern, to purchase the Getty Oil Company. Texaco then bought 56% of Getty's stock for $10.1 billion. It was the largest business merger in U.S. history. The FTC required Texaco, among other things, to sell several of its refineries and some 1,900 retail outlets in the Northeast. 3 years before the turn of the century, in 1997, the Dow Jones Industrial Average first elapsed the 7,000 mark and closed at $7,022.44. In the year 2000, the last Peanut comic strip was published in newspapers just hours after the death of creator Charles Schulz. 2 years later, in 2002, the Scottish Parliament passed a Protection of Wild Mammals Bill, which made it illegal to hunt wild mammals with dogs, effectively outlawing fox hunting in Scotland. Moving forward 8 years down the historical timeline to 2010, when Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd apologized to the Australian Aboriginal people for abuses they had suffered under earlier administration. 3 years later, in 2013, U.S. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta announced the creation of the new digested welfare medal. It will be revealed or reserved for honoring extraordinary achievements by non-combat U.S. military personnel, such as drone pilots who operate the unmanned aircraft with remote locations. Now, in 2016, one American journalist, Anton Scalia, who served as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, became well known for his strong legal conservatism, passed away in Shafter, Texas. And with that, we return to 2024 and our current history. Let's see what this year has in store for us. Until next time.